Big one coming up in about 30 minutes. The biggest game of the UFL weekend is set to kick off in about 30 minutes between the Arlington Renegades and the defending UFL runner-ups trying to get back to St. Louis for the second year in a row, the San Antonio Brahmas. We are live, breaking it all down, doing a pregame show as we get set to kick off in about 30 minutes and counting. Lucas Hill here along with you to take you through as we get closer and closer to kickoff between the San Antonio Brahmas and the Arlington Renegades. Everybody do us a favor. If you're watching us, we're only broadcasting on YouTube and X. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you do us a favor. Hit the like, hit the share button. Make sure you hit that subscribe and bell notification. If you're watching us on X, make sure you join the link that I just posted in my bio that says join inside the huddle. Make sure you hit the link. If you want your voice heard, if you want to come talk ball with us before the game starts, make sure you hit the link. Come join. We'll talk ball, man. Can't wait to get started with this one because it's going to be a fun ball game. So let's briefly talk a little bit about this game coming up. We talked yesterday recapping everything that happened out in Houston, and it was almost a PR disaster, man. I'll just be honest with you, man. First game of the season, it ends up being a blowout. We talked about how inconsistent that Houston team got. You started off great after the initial drive. You get a turnover on downs, and then the offense just completely blew up in their face. Had no answer whatsoever for any opportunity that your defense gave you. You got to be able to tackle in space. That's what Coach Johnson said in his post-game press conference. That's what needs to be reiterated over and over and over if they want to be better going into the rest of the season. If you want to be a consistent player, you got to be able to tackle in space. Another thing that you got to do, you got to start Nolan Henderson. I'll just be honest with you. You got to start Nolan Henderson. Skill set wise, is much better suited for the offense other than what Anthony Brown does. I love Anthony Brown as a player. I really do. But I think in here, you got to go with experience. And I think Nolan Henderson gives you that. I know it didn't help that your offensive line didn't really help you out. But I feel like if you want to have success, I think that Nolan Richardson is going to give you the best opportunity at the end of the day. We talked about St. Louis. Dude, what a dominant performance. Dominant performance from Manny Wilkins. What a great start to his UFL season. Something that you needed. I'll be honest with you. It was much needed, and you got it from him. Exactly what you needed, and I was very, very impressed with what they put on the table. Really, really impressed and continuing to look forward to what he's going to bring to the table as a quarterback. I think he brings a lot of experience. I think that he's somebody that is going to gain a lot of respect at the end of the day of that locker room. He's the one that's going to take control. You know, he's the veteran. He sat behind A.J. McCarron last year, didn't get a contract, but I think this, we know at the beginning of the year when we talked with Arlington Lane of the A-Train show, we said this was going to be a battle between Manny and it was going to be between Max Duggan. We didn't know who was going to be the surefire starter, but he said that this was Manny Wilkins' team. He's been there since 2023. He was behind AJ the last 2 years. This is his opportunity, and he got a great start last night. Absolutely great start. By the way, guys, look at the ticker below. If you want to also get involved in the show, make sure y'all contact the show down below. Every pregame and postgame show is brought to you by our good friends over at vocalbreaks.com. That's vocalbreaks.com. Use code LucasHill10 to get your first month free whenever you use code LucasHill10. Vocalbreaks.com is one of the best when it comes to all things music production, whether you're a producer, just somebody that's new to the music game. If you want the best, do not settle for less. Go to vocalbreaks.com. Use AI advanced technology to help separate tracks and create some awesome music. All right, let's preview today's game between the Arlington Renegades and none other than the San Antonio Brahmas. Because, guys, there is a lot that we need to talk about and we need to discuss. So, we talked about this earlier today. So, oh, dang. So, apparently Danny Garcia and Russ Brandon were available about 45 minutes ago. I would have joined and talked about this, but, I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day. I'm not worried about that. Anyways, let's talk about a little bit what we got. What a matchup that we got. Bob Stoops going up against Wade Phillips. Nothing better than what we have in store for you. Guys, this is going to be a heck of a battle between these two teams. I am really, really excited for what is to come. And I am excited for what we have for that team. And I'll be honest, guys, this is going to be one that many people need to pay attention to. This is the game that may decide who's going to be in to represent the XFL in the UFL title game. I'll be honest with you. Just here to be honest with you, and I truly believe that. Why do I say that? Because I look at the depth of what Arlington and both St. Louis or not St. Louis, but San Antonio has. Guys, it's going to happen. It has to happen at some point. You have to wonder, like, what is it that a team like Arlington is going to have this year? It's bound to happen, man. Here was a team that going back to 2024. Overall, you were one of the best. You were one of the best offenses. Averaged about 227 yards a game. Averaged around dang near. I mean, you averaged about 56 plays a game. Impressive. Actually, you averaged 311 yards a game. So you were one of the better offenses in all of the UFL. You were one of the teams that people needed to pay attention to. And all that goes back to the unbelievable capability of a guy like Luis Perez at the helm. When you have a quarterback like that and the experience that Arlington brings back, it is scary to look at and say, man, we got a really good roster ahead of us. And it's going to be one that's going to be scary for a long time. Davion Smith, what is he going to do this year? I think that's your X factor if you're Arlington. Davion Smith is a guy that I had a lot of love for last year. Averaged over 4 yards a carry. Here's a guy that they love to utilize in the game. Had 23 catches as well. So I said this a lot if you follow our college football content. We need to label these running backs now as athletes. That's essentially what we have at this point in time with the state of the UFL. It's because of things like this that I'm so impressed with where the league is going because of this. And it's really, really impressive to see. Guys, Davion Smith is going to be the big reason why Arlington is going to have success on the ground as well as through the air. He's a guy that I think Perez can get the check down to, and he just makes magic happen. I'll just be honest with you. Because of what you have to work with a guy like that. Because he's so dynamic as a playmaker, there is something about him that I think not a whole lot of people can really say. Because of how good he can be when he's utilized properly. Arlington is going to be able to do that. Not to mention that defense that I think is always well known for. To me, depending on what the over-under is, give me the under in this one, to be honest. And look, it's going to be a tight ball game. I think this one could end up being a 17-14 game. Just being honest with you and what you've seen last year from both sides of the ball. because you are dominant all across the field. I told you the biggest key to look out for yesterday whenever we were preparing for this game was looking out for the linebacking core with what San Antonio brought to the table, going up against arguably the best tight end in all the UFL in Sal Cannella. What could you do with that amount of depth? What could you do to dominate a game like that? Here's another name that you need to look out for at the end of the day in 2025 for San Antonio. It's what we're talking about. What does the quarterback situation look like? I know Kellen Mond's going to start. And look, I love Kellen Mond. I think he's a dynamic quarterback. You saw it at Texas A&M. But the problem with him is that he was never in a good system. That's why you didn't see the same success that he had at the next level. And look, Kellen Mond's going to come into year one, and he's going to be your guy. I think Hogan is your backup, and Jarrett Garantano is going to be your third. To me, I don't even know if Jarrett Garantano is even worth your time, but I don't know, man. What I'm excited to see is that receiving core of San Antonio, because you look at who they got. You get Jontre Kirkland, who was the receptions co-leader last year, showed out and dominated throughout that year. You bring back Racey McMath, who is entering his first year coming from LSU. So a little bit of history between Racey McMath as well as Jontre Kirkland. They were both teammates at LSU. And Racey McMath is a really speedy receiver. Came from Edna Karr High School. I think he's a guy that is going to be dominant in one-on-one matchups on the outside. Matthew Sexton, who's been around the XFL/UFL a couple times, was with the Vegas Vipers in 2022 and 2023. I think with Marquez Stevenson, who showed out a little bit last year, showed some promise. Greg Ward, to me, is going to be your guy, though. I think Greg Ward is one of those guys that is just, if you remember him whenever he was at Houston, you know what we mean. We're talking speed demon. I think that's a guy that you can line up at the X or slot, and I think you can get him in the flats, and he can just make magic. He can do a little bit of what Ja'Cory or Pearson did last night. Just torch defenses, just making a few men miss, and he's 88 and out the gate. No doubt in my mind he can do stuff like that. And if you're surprised that he does, I wouldn't. I would not be at all. Because I trust the quarterback that's at the helm in Kellen Mond, and I know that he's going to use a couple of plays. What I'm intrigued to see is this as well. Is what does San Antonio decide to do with trickeration? Well, especially when you get Greg Ward Jr. in the mix. Do you decide to get him in on a double reverse and maybe take a shot down the field? It wouldn't surprise me if they do. And I think that adds a bit more to it, especially with adding Donald De La Haye, a.k.a. Destroying, to the roster. By the way, have you guys seen the documentary about it? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Because, golly, he's just ripping dudes. He's on their butts for some reason. I think he was on Brad Wing for a little while. And, dude, Brad Wing's been in the league for at least 10 years. He was in the NFL for, 4 years after he got out of LSU. He went to Parkview Baptist, too. Interesting. I did not know that. But he's been with the Brahmas twice, was in the AAF, one time with the Memphis Express, then got an opportunity with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Remember, it wasn't but 2 years ago, he was the punting average leader in the XFL. So maybe we'll have a little bit of that come into play. You look at the DB position for San Antonio, and it is deep. You bring in Henry Black, who's entering his first year in the UFL after spending 3 in the NFL. Had a pretty good year in 2021. Finished with 36 total tackles. Started off as the fourth safety on the depth chart and got a lot of playing time. You bring in Tariq Carpenter, former 7th-round pick. Greedy Williams, who was a former All-American at LSU. That's a big pickup. And I thought he did okay whenever he was in Cleveland. I thought he had a bright future ahead of him. Fortunately, that never happened. Darius Phillips, who is going to play a bit of cornerback, but I think he's going to be mainly used as a special teams guy at the start of the year. But yeah, man, that's basically what you have at this point in time. If you're San Antonio, you're happy with how deep the roster is. And look, I do know that you have a lot of guys that you can really rely on at the end of the day when it comes to crunch time. But no, like I was mentioned earlier, I think the most underrated aspect to this is San Antonio's offense. What are they going to bring to the table? What did Phillips and company do at the end of the day? You know, what are they going to do with this offense? I really love AJ Smith as your offensive coordinator. I think he brings a lot to the table. I think he's a really bright offensive mind. I think Wade Phillips too is calling the plays, I want to say. Yeah, AJ Smith's been around for a while. He's from Shreveport. There's a lot of local Louisiana kids that are there. So from what I'm looking at right now, 3 times he's been an OC. He was the OC with the Roughnecks 2 years ago, then was an OC in the spring league. It was with the Roughnecks in 2020 as the receivers coach. Been in the CFL, was a quarterbacks coach with Jackson State. That's really his highest that he's ever been. So I think it's interesting with AJ Smith and what he's bringing out. And look, he's a really, really interesting play caller. If you remember, guys, he's got a play call that goes GTFO. And I think it's really awesome that how much of an offensive mind this kid is, because he's been around for a while. Guys, he's been really, really good as an offensive coordinator and what he's been able to do, not just with Houston, but also with San Antonio this year and what he's bringing to the table. Guys, he's doing a great job as an OC, and I think he's going to continue to improve over and over as he enters the next couple of years. But on the Arlington side of things, when you look at where this team is at, here's your keys to victory real fast, because I know the game's about to start in about 3 minutes. Number 1 is this. You got to protect Luis Perez. If you give Luis Perez time, he's going to deliver, and he's going to be able to pick apart that San Antonio defense. I think this is a much improved DB room than what you saw last year with San Antonio. And I think that's going to benefit them greatly. But again, you got to be able to put pressure on Luis Perez. You saw what St. Louis did with our scrambling quarterbacks like Nolan Richardson and Anthony Brown. You got to do the same thing with Luis Perez, who's more of a pocket passer, but still. Number 2, what does your defense do? You know, I think Arlington, one of the best things that you saw about them was their ability to disguise coverages. And it benefited them greatly over the course of the season. Now, I know that they ended off better than what they started after starting 0-6 during that stretch. But you saw the offense really come together. You got to be able to finish. You know, you were in a little bit of a situation I think twice last year. St. Louis was one, DC was the other. I would say San Antonio was another one too, and Michigan as well. So 4 times you had opportunities to win the game. You got to be able to finish. That's got to be your mantra this year if you want to go ahead and make another deep run in the postseason. You did it before in 2023 when you went, 4-6 and won the XFL title. What did you do there? You started 4. You lost your last. You started 3-2. You lost 4 of your last 5 and somehow got it together. You were able to finish games and beat that same DC team. Last year was about the same time. You barely missed out, by the way. So you got to be able to get that top 2 in the XFL conference because it's so tight. Every single game is going to count in a 10-game season. It starts tonight. For San Antonio, put pressure on Luis Perez. It's a gotta attitude. Get after that ass. Do not stop. For your offense, get your playmakers the football. Get guys that have been key to the success of this team the football. And if you do that, you're going to win this football game. You can't get behind the sticks as well because we saw it a lot of times last year from San Antonio, and it cost them big time. I feel like as soon as the team gets up on them, you got to get guys like John Trey Kirkland. You got to get Greg Ward. You got to get creative too. Get Greg Ward involved in this offense as much as humanly possible. Guys, it's 3 o'clock. Game's about to start in just a minute. Y'all have a great rest of the game. We'll be back later tonight and talk everything that happened throughout the game. We're going to break it all down for you here on Inside the Huddle. We'll see you then at around 9:30 tonight. Had 35 of you tune in for our pregame show. Y'all enjoy the game. We'll see y'all later. Peace.